Recently, we saw one of the most interesting movies of the year, Tar, and today we will be conducting a review and a thought process throughout the movie.
If you're here, then you already know who she is. Lydia Tar is many things.
Kind of a podcasty, kind of a vibe. We might get a little lengthy, and hopefully you enjoy bouncing off ideas with us and other people in the comments, and that's kind of what this is going to be. We're just really excited to get into Tar. This was a really interesting movie, and we really enjoyed it. I still have it as a 9 out of 10. Not that arbitrary ratings matter, but I guarantee the more I talk about it, and if I see it again, which I probably will, then it'll go up to probably a 10 out of 10. And Christian,
I give it a 10 out of 10. I went all the way. I love this movie. And first of all, I just want to address, I'm underdressed. By comparison. Anyways, I give this a 10 out of 10. This is my favorite movie of the year. I've been waiting for something like this to come along for a while, I'd say. I'd say a couple of years. Noisy, interesting movie that people can talk about. Not that we haven't had those. But this one is like a real test. Like, I don't know who to sell it to, and that's what I love about it. Todd Field, this is his first movie in 16 years. He made a movie, says a lot with it, he does a lot with it, and he's just kind of like, here you go, have at it. And I ate it the up. Loved it.
First, we're just going to kind of generally talk about it, but we think you should definitely see this movie. We think it is definitely worth your time. The only thing I could say is maybe this wouldn't be the movie for you is if they do this deliberately, and it is with reason, and it builds up the character and makes the movie's themes come across really well, but the characters are all very pretentious for the most part, which I can understand somebody not necessarily wanting to go to a movie and see that for 3 hours, but like it's very interesting. I could see somebody just being like, not really my cup of tea, but hopefully it would convert you because they do a really good job of poking fun at it while also taking all the characters seriously.
It's true, and so the night after we saw it, I got in bed and I was like, what exactly was that last scene? And I gave it a Google and I was like, that's hilarious. You think about the way that the movie starts, which I'll say this movie is essentially about one person. She is a fictional, I want to say this because the details are so specific that I would have believed it was a real person. In fact, I did until I Googled it. I'm all for its Oscars. Yes, please. Tar is nearly 3 hours and I didn't check my time. I didn't check the time once. I really didn't. My taste, maybe, isn't always to be trusted. I don't know who to sell this movie to.
But like everybody seemed like they liked it at the theater, and it seems like everybody's pretty much liking that's seeing it. I don't know. There's definitely a subset of people that probably don't like this movie, which is fine. But
there is.
It seems like people that really like movies is getting like, hey, this was cool, and this was thought-provoking and worth my time. When we went to see this movie, we were up to go get tickets, and Christian walks up to get tickets, and
the cashier was like, you do know this movie is 3 hours, right? I was like, yep, can't wait, let's go. I love Todd Field's first two movies, In the Bedroom and Little Children. They are significantly different than this. He has upped his game in those 16 years since he's made a movie. Like, this is like immaculate filmmaking.
However, this is massive spectacle because she's so good in it.
Everything you've heard about this performance is true. If you love her and you love like tremendous acting, you gotta see it. Like, that's it. Even if you don't like the movie, you gotta give her the time.
This definitely stood out to me as the signature performance of the year as far as the leading female performances go.
Absolutely.
And there's others that I will get around to, or that will get put out, that will hopefully be included in my 5 as worthy competitors. But also, I don't see anybody really topping this, because you can tell that the part was for her, and she was 100% committed to the part, and she's just really good at switching between accents, and she's really good at you can tell all the time how she's feeling. She's very expressive, while also being very dominant and evoking the feelings that you need to have from the character to understand who this character is, and understand why she is in the place that she is, and why she's so powerful, and how she can, get away with things.
Honestly, like, from the opening scene of the movie, I started observing her, and I started observing her mannerisms and the way she was moving, and I was like, she seems like she's doing an imitation of somebody. but Lydia Tarr is not a real person. And that's just like one detail of many that is so specific. This feels like a biopic of a musician, but it feels more realistic than a biopic of a musician, and it's about a fake person.
The filming of it and the cinematography and everything, it's not, oh, this is a period thing. Just because it deals with classical music, it doesn't mean it's that, if you're worried about something like that.
It's not.
It's very interesting, very intriguing. Your mind is spinning the whole time, not just on what's going on in the movie, but what it relates to around you in your real life and general thoughts you have on your day-to-day. It's a very interesting movie, and especially if you have somebody to go to dinner with afterwards, or go on a car ride home and just talk about, what did you think of this? What was your philosophy on this? And how did you feel like they did this through the character? And it just opens up a lot of really interesting conversations that we are very excited to get into, so we will do that. However, we're just going to say one more time, if you haven't seen this movie, go see it. Hopefully it's playing near you. I know some theaters are stupid and they have to show certain other movies 100 times and no tar. But that's okay. Hopefully it gets around to you. You seek it out. Go see it if this is your kind of thing. I think you will be glad you did. And now we're going to jump into the actual movie. So the movie literally starts with black screen, and you're hearing these noises and the sounds of the music and stuff like that. And you're just kind of like, okay, what's it going to pop up on? What it pops up on is the credits. You know, the credits that you see usually at the end of the movie, they're at the beginning of this movie, and they're in reverse. It throws them all up at the screen at once, so you have to watch it. You can't just leave. In theory, you could have taken a longer bathroom break during the trailers at E-Tech, but they let you see everybody that worked on the movie, and it goes through the entire credit system. It goes all the way down from the janitor or the caterers all the way to like, hey, these people are in the movie, and you can visually see that they worked on the movie. And then it says, oh yeah, Todd Field wrote this and directed this and produced it, yada yada, etc. And it's really well done. It wasn't even a thing where I had to think about it later. You so knew what was going on, struck right out at you to the point where you're just like, this is amazing. This is not even that it just hasn't been done, but it's done for a purpose you later learn for 1,000% sure. It just sets it apart from other movies immediately, and it had me smiling at the very beginning. I just kept turning to Krista and I was like, this is awesome.
It is. It's a movie about creative people. It's a movie about a lot of things. Let me just say, at about the 30-minute mark, I was like, I should be taking notes. And I wrote a review of this, which I actually thought was very good. I don't always say that.
Link below.
But I didn't think that did the movie justice. Because there was only so much I could say. I think one thing we lose sight of in terms of when we're watching movies, it's like, yes, we know Todd Field directed this movie, but also he has other craftsmen who don't always get the credit in putting these productions together, and it's also a movie about that. She has a whole orchestra who you don't even know any of their names, but the whole focus is on Lydia Tarr or other people who are elevating her. Again, God, it's such a fascinating movie.
With movies, it's like easier to understand that a lot of people worked on it with the opening credits. With musicians, you're more easily to just be like, this is that music person's thing. This is what they came up with. This is their thing. They all did all the work on this.
Yeah.
And then you don't even realize, oh yeah, they have the whole orchestra, and stuff. And like with modern artists and stuff, they still have a whole team behind writing songs. Even if they write their own songs, they still have people usually helping them write the songs, unless they're independent and really insane, which
Lydia Tarr is kind of a psychopath, so it makes sense that she writes her own.
Yeah, she's a perfectionist, so I would say she probably does actually write her stuff. Probably does have some help here or there that she will not give people credit for. You know? That's kind of who she ends up becoming and stuff. You typically would think that, you know, it's a solo act, but in reality there's a lot that goes into it, and it just shows her relationships with all these different people throughout the movie.
I thought about Hans Zimmer, you know, who I think is incredible. He's one of the best. Hans Zimmer isn't the only one performing all of that music. Yeah. But Hans Zimmer's name is on it because he wrote the music. He has a whole group of people, I'm sure, conducting his orchestra. One thing I noticed about Tar, and you'll notice this early on, is the way in which Todd Field has chosen to tell this story, because we're introduced to the greatness of Lydia Tarr up front. Immediately, we're like, she is the shit. But one thing you'll also pick up on is that she is the shit, but she wants us to know she's the shit. The movie opens with her doing an interview, I assume for the New Yorker, one of those kind of things, with an actual journalist. He's playing himself. While he's reading off all of her achievements, we soon realize that not only is Lydia Tarr sitting right next to him, listening to all this, but also it's a cut to Lydia's assistant, who is mouthing the words. Every syllable, she knows what he is saying. So pretty much the image that Lydia Tarr presents is presented the way that she wants it. And because she's so powerful, she can do that.
Because at first you're just kind of like, oh, she's just being sarcastic, or she's like, but no, she's literally just like, they've rehearsed this, they literally wrote this entire interview, which is crazy, but also a really good commentary on figures in pop culture and media, and how you can kind of control your own narrative. And
exactly.
And especially if you have that much power, which she very clearly does.
In her world, which, yes, this is the world of classical music, which is such a specific choice as well. Like, he could have told this story with an actress, with a Harvey Weinstein, you know, but he chose to do it in the world of classical music, and it's so weird how knowledgeable the movie is about classical music, because I discovered that Todd Field wrote this movie in 12 weeks. I need that script. I gotta see it.
The majority of people don't know a whole lot about classical music. It's not like super popular anymore. Like, there's still great people doing it because
Of course.
And there's like probably more great people doing it today than have ever done it. But we just know like the really important names from back then who are, you know, arguably better, blah, 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 and probably are, but it's just, there's just so much more opportunity for people, so there's way more people doing it, is my point, basically. The fact that it is about classical musicians and classical conductor is not random. It builds in with the themes brilliantly.
The movie opens with 3 big sequences that pretty much set the tone for who this person is, and it's really with the third one. The second one I'm referring to is the dinner conversation with Mark Strong. He's like a colleague of hers, but you can tell that he really just wants to be her. And she knows that. She's amicable with him, but she's also just kind of like, yeah. There's something very disingenuous about her. Anytime somebody in the movie asks her for a favor, she'll be like, oh yes, absolutely. But you can just kind of tell that that's not.
She's not mean to him. They're like amicably sarcastic back and forth and stuff. Then we get to the third scene, which ties into the theme thing. It lights up and goes absolutely nuts, where she's lecturing at Juilliard.
This is probably the scene of the year. I feel like that's doing the movie a disservice. It sounds like the movie peaks at the 30-minute mark.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
It's not true. It's just like, this sequence is electric. Lydia Tarr is teaching this course at Juilliard. She has not left for Germany yet, which is where she resides. And one of her students, he's pretty polite, I would say, but he voices this opinion that he does not like Bach because of his personal beliefs and his identity. She does not take this and goes on this tangent about separating the art and the artist, while she's also pretty much doing whatever she can to sort of belittle him into losing the argument.
But it does kind of seem like he dismisses the art of the music.
Yeah, he does, just because of that.
I think he says he never played any Bach or anything because of this. Being of that art or whatever, you know, you want to do that.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
And you want to, especially know where he came from in terms of like what came before me, what can we, you know, kind of mix up here and improve upon. Like, that's how art usually works. Anybody that loves movies and wants to make movies and loves watching movies and just wants to know more about movies, you gotta watch the older stuff. If you really want to like ultimately direct movies and that's your goal, which I am never going to be able to do that, and I can not only imagine the people out there that can, and they're awesome. People like that, they know, like they've seen like the really old movies, like the silent great movies, and I try to watch as many as I can too. I used to watch way more, but I've at least seen a good chunk of them and things like that. But you got to kind of appreciate the past before you can create the future.
Absolutely.
But it just kind of seems like he kind of dismisses this.
He does.
And she goes about it in not the best way, of course.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, it goes to show, you know, who she is as a character. Where at the beginning of this movie, at this point in the movie, I'm just like, this girl is insane. She's great. She's knowledgeable. She's very talented. She knows what she's doing. She's commanding the entire room, all hyped up for her. Just being like, she's saying whatever the heck she wants to say. I'm like, I pretty much agree with basically everything she's saying.
I do too.
She's just not going about it the best. You're also like, oh, I'm watching a movie. I'm not literally in this situation, so it's different.
Exactly.
So you're sitting there kind of like rooting her on, like in your mind. You're just kind of like, what the hell is she going to say next? What she's going to do next? She's like, this is cool. This is why I go to the movies, to see people like this that you don't run into every day. It's kind of one of those things where it's really powerful, and the writing is great. The writing is fantastic, and it does a really good job of just making you feel like you're there while also having some distance with the material to where you can enjoy it as a movie and just a character study and dive into her. What I was saying about the theme earlier, where it ties into the Bach stuff. Bach is a person who was around a long time ago. The point where you're not like, oh yeah, I read in the paper that he did some stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But all you know about Bach is he made classical music. It was well renowned. People taught it in music class when you went to school. You were like, oh, I know, yeah, Johann Sebastian Bach, that's a name I've heard of, you know, things like that, like Beethoven, yada yada, people like that. You don't think about them as people that really existed. You think about them more so of, oh yeah, they created this art that goes on and lives on forever.
They're figures, basically. They're kind of historical figures. Their contributions surpass the test of time.
You think they're closer to Aristotle than Tom Cruise or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's really good.
They're way closer to Tom Cruise's time period, but your mindset, you think about them more as Aristotle versus people that are contemporary that you know right now. And it really kind of gives your brain a little distance where you can more so appreciate the art, but it's not completely irrelevant that what they did in their actual personal lives. It's easier to distance yourself from and be like, dude, you gotta appreciate that stuff because that's the stuff that came before it. Yeah. But like he kind of views it a little differently, where it's like we live in this hyper engaged world where you know everything about everybody's life and sometimes that's not great because some people do some really not good things to where it's harder to appreciate their art and everything, and to even say the word appreciate when talking about them is not really great in a lot of cases where they're committing like actual crimes and stuff. They play up with the modern differences and social media and stuff in this movie, which makes it also really interesting and engaging. It's not like eye roll things where you're like, oh, they're on Twitter. Ugh. I don't like watching a movie that is in the current year I existed. It's like an actual thought-provoking stuff, and they don't shove it down your throat. Just like a part of the movie. If she was a real person, this is how she would be treated.
I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, where does Todd Field really lie with social media? The thing about the movie is it is impartial. It's just observations, but they're accurate observations of the way that we are now.
He's just like, here's this slice of life, and you can view it in whatever lens you want. There's not a wrong way to view it, but there's also the right way to view it is to view it as many times as you can possibly do in your head, where you're just like, oh, I can look at it this way. Oh, I can look at it this way. The right way to view it is just like constantly churning your brain, where you're just like, how do I feel about this? You know, how do I feel about that? And it just makes it all the more interesting that it doesn't come out and say, this is what the scene means. This is how you're supposed to react to the scene. Because there's a lot of legitimate, reasonable ways that you can react to the scene, and that's why it's so powerful and visceral. But that's at this point in the movie.
We're at 30 minutes.
Yeah. She becomes pretty obvious, not a great person. But at this point, you're just kind of like, I don't know what I'm getting into, and you're kind of rooting for her almost, at least in my view. I don't think she really did anything that bad yet. The performance is that good to where you're just like, I want to see what she does next, and I'm like really excited.
I think that scene part of its brilliance is that I think different people will respond to it in different ways. You're either like, hell yeah, or you're like, her. It's a matter of taste. I don't know. I don't disagree with her, but I agree. She went about it in the wrong. Not like it didn't seem professional.
Yeah,
it seemed kind of petty.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it was definitely petty. But like, it wasn't outright. If that's all she did, I wouldn't be like, oh, she's a bad person. Like, I wouldn't think that at all.
Like, if somebody tried to cancel her based on that, like,
we have a different movie. But.
Yes, we do. But the movie is young. Yes, it is.
But not to go unnoticed, it is kind of funny in this moment. You realize this is an uncomfortable situation, But it's kind of funny just how quick-witted, commander-ish she goes about destroying this person for no reason other than he said an opinion that she didn't like. Which is crazy when you put it like that. But, I mean, it kind of is funny because you're just like, this is a weird situation that I am not a part of. You can kind of just watch it.
It does make sense with her, though. Because I feel like, and another way to look at it is, it's not even like he went out of his way to challenge her. But if you think about it, her ego, we don't know this at the moment, but we also do. But her ego is so inflated that the idea of anybody not agreeing with her. Everybody around her is kind of like her hype woman. Even her assistant, who we learn pretty early on, committed to her, but also finds her a bit obnoxious. This kid just has this opinion that she does not see eye to eye with, and she's just like, no. And so she just pretty much tries to assassinate his character in the course of, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Seems long, but it probably wasn't.
Exactly. And I think it's all one shot.
Good. Yeah.
Incredible stuff.
At that moment, I'm like, okay, this movie is really, really good. It's just, this is a movie, and here, this is what a movie can do.
The first two sequences are good, but the movie really comes alive after this. If you're not just ready for the rest of the journey after that, I mean, I don't know what to say.
It keeps going to that humor spot where it's like, I didn't laugh a lot to a certain point, but pretty much our crowd was pretty full, which was cool. And then, but there were a lot of people laughing. And I don't know if it was just they knew a lot about classical music and they were like, this is funny because of this or anything, but there was a lot. I don't know if it's awkward laughing or.
I don't know if it's that. I think the movie, and again, it was like once I thought about the ending of the movie and the rest of the movie, I do think it's like slyly funny. Or at least that's like one way of looking at it. And I think part of that comedy is the way that she's established early on. So then as the movie goes on, like we pick up on her psyche and you just kind of know what she's capable of, you know what makes her tick, you know what annoys her.
It's basically like a high art version of, hey, this first 20 or 30 minutes, you're going to learn like 9 seasons of sitcom about all these characters, and you're going to know who she is and, you know, what makes her do this or that. And you can just look at her face and you can just be like, oh, I know what's going on with her. And you're like, that's kind of funny because I can see where this is going and, you know, that kind of thing.
It's brilliant. It really is. Like, I mean, it's a combination of Field and Blanchett. I don't know how well they knew each other, but, like, they get it. Like, they both, like, she was picking up what he was putting down and everything. She returns home to Berlin, and honestly, I don't even think there's a mention of her family up to this point. Like, maybe during the interview, she's a lesbian. She actually refers to herself as a U-Haul lesbian. I picked up on that. I don't, okay. She's married to a woman named Sharon, or maybe, I don't know the legal status, but Sharon is in her orchestra. And they have an adopted daughter.
Girlfriend or wife. They don't outright tell you, but the way it comes across, wife would not be out of the question because they really do a great job with the chemistry of the scene. You genuinely believe them as a couple. And you're like, oh, okay. She has this other life, and you're like, she's, you know.
Yeah, you would, like, she seems like a normal person when she's there. In her swanky-ass, gorgeous apartment, which, good lord. Whew.
At the time, like, you genuinely believe, like, these two people love each other, and she, like, that Lydia Tarr loves her and everything, but obviously you kind of later start to question things when all the stuff gets revealed, and then you go back to that stuff, and you're like, oh, maybe she was really putting on an act, like, the whole time, and she was doing it really well, but the way the movie is structured, you genuinely believe it in the moment, and the fact that it becomes an act later makes it all the more impressive, even in the context of just the story.
For real, yeah. Again, this is at the start of the movie. The relationships that she has with Sharon and her daughter seem pure, at least at the start. But also, I think the fact that I don't really think that they're mentioned until like the 35-minute mark when they appear.
Yeah, it should be a clue.
Is also notable. Sharon is played by an actress named Nina Haas. That I've never seen her. I think she's terrific in this. I also think her assistant Francesca, played by an actress named Nomi Laurent. I hope I get that right. But also terrific. Sharon reveals their daughter is Petra. Wow. Oh, on fire. Petra is being bullied at school. And what transpires in this scene?
Basically, yeah, like a 6-year-old girl. Normal drop off at school kind of scene, or, boop-a-doop-a-doo, but this is Lydia Tarr. This is not Kevin James in a comedy. This is Lydia Tarr, and she walks up to the bully, who is also a 6, 7, 8-year-old girl. And she's with her friends, presumably. But yeah, Lydia Tarr, she gets in her face. We all saw. And yeah, it was hilarious, but also like, it's not a good thing. But
switches to German and tells her.
Oh yeah.
She switches to German and she tells her that she will end her.
Yeah.
To leave her daughter alone, and if she tells anybody about this interaction, she will end her.
Yeah. And like, if you just say that or whatever, you're just like, oh, that's a horrible thing to say. But in the context of the movie, especially at this point, you're like 100% really on her side, which is kind of crazy. But there's still a sprinkling of you questioning her or whatever. But like, you're like, the way the movie is told and the way it has been done, especially with the previous scenes of the family, and you're like, okay, they really are in a great unit, and they all do really love each other, and it's a nice home and everything. You're like, yeah, why are you bullying her? Yeah, it's like, and she stood up for her, did what parents are supposed to do, but also probably aren't supposed to do that. But
no.
intentions wise, it was good,
Yeah.
But anyway, if it was just kind of silly Kevin James, Adam Sandler comedy or something, you would be like, that's really funny because that guy's older and he's saying, I will end you.
Exactly.
It's funny because of that. And in this movie, it is also funny, but it's like,
different.
When things get revealed, you think back to, it's like even things like that, she's doing this or that. But yeah, also notably, I don't really think too many people have pointed this out in things that I've listened to, but one of the things she does say when she's talking to her is something like, God knows. God's watching. God's always watching her. And based on things you know about her, she probably isn't really that religious.
No.
Because of
who
she is.
Yeah.
So it makes it all the worse. Because she's just kind of saying it knowing that the little girl is probably raised like that. And she, at this time, especially, she's like, oh no, like, I don't want to do anything bad or whatever. It's like, I'm going to hell if this happens or whatever. But the way she says it is so domineering and powerful that is gross abuse of her power, especially to a child. But the way she just kind of slides that in, it gives you kind of a warning sign where it's like, this person is kind of messed up.
Yes, exactly. She tells her she's going to end her, says, God's watching, walks away.
Yeah.
And she's like waving to other kids.
Yeah, like she just said nice things.
Exactly.
She switched her language.
Hey, how you doing?
It's
so funny.
Yeah, she's hello.
Yeah.
People passing by.
God, I love her.
It's really funny. But yeah, anyway. But at this time, you're kind of like going along for the ride. And you're like, okay, this movie's kind of fun too.
Slowly learning, though. There is a side to her that is, not great.
Problematic.
Yes, and it's all being trickled out in such a meticulous, careful way. Neglected to mention the opening of the movie. She's promoting a memoir that she's writing called Tar on Tar, and which is very pretentious. But one thing that is pointed out later, and whenever it's parodied, is Rat on Rat. And then I was also like,
or I don't think it was parody. It was.
It
was like earlier in the movie. Lydia Tarr has her notebook and she's decoding something in the newspaper, and it was like an anagram.
Yeah, see,
it was an anagram. And she was decoding it, where it was like her pretentious switching it up as an anagram, and like rat on rat.
Yeah,
it is tar on tar.
Makes
anagram.
sense. Yeah,
so
it works.
Yeah, But like, I think that's what she's kind of going for, mocking, parodying Lydia's anagram notes, I guess.
It also dawned on me that Tar and Art, same letters.
Yeah.
That's probably where he
very intentional, probably
got the title.
Yeah.
But damn, it works, and it's got like the tilde, and I think like when the movie, like the A has the tilde, and the movie's being promoted in bold letters, and I don't know, it just adds to like the fact that this movie is like secretly funny.
It's almost satirical.
Yeah, it is.
It might actually be satirical.
That's the thing. That's what clicked with me when I looked up the ending of the movie. I was like, oh. And like I just thought about, I don't know. Anyways, we'll get to that later. She's preparing for this big orchestra, ordeal or composition. God, I'm trying to use musical terms. I don't know shit. You should.
I'm wearing a suit, so I should know.
You and in jeans.
No one can see that. I've done a very good job cropping them out. I am somewhat people call an artist.
Oh. Well, I'm blue. I guess
that color is green.
Well,
comment below.
It's blue.
Comment below. What color is Christian's shirt?
It's blue.
And tell me why it's green.
Representing blue jasmine.
Well, it's green, so
it's
terrible.
Blue. It's blue. Okay, whatever. It's like the what color was the dress debate,
but it's more important.
Except this is blue,
but green.
It's not. Okay, whatever. It's blue. Maybe it's the lighting. I don't know.
And the fact that it's green.
I'm matching! It's blue!
Okay, that is blue, but a navy blue, but that is a green.
No, it's not!
Okay.
Okay, whatever, we're getting off topic.
Oh, that was off topic.
Yes, a tad. Anyways, so pretty much just seeing Lydia's routines, she's getting ready for this, and she writes music, like a separate apartment that is separate from her family. She just goes there to write music.
I didn't even notice that.
Oh, you didn't notice that?
Yeah. I thought she was on her business trip.
No. She has a separate apartment where she goes to write music. And Francesca, her assistant, tells her that she's been receiving emails from someone that they know. She's like, From a woman named Krista, I believe. I believe that was her name.
Krista, yeah.
And she's just like, I don't care. It'll go away. And then in the meanwhile, while she's conducting and she's writing and getting ready, she starts hearing all these noises. Like, it's like anytime Lydia is alone, she'll hear like she'll go for a run and she'll hear screams in the background. Or like she goes to sleep and she can hear a metronome going off. It's just like, even when she has like peace and quiet, she never feels alone, and it just kind of adds to the madness.
When she's like running out in the woods and you hear the scream, like I kind of was like, oh, I really did kind of have that thought where it's like, is that Krista? Like, and she heard it.
That's the thing.
But like, also it never tells you, which is good because more likely it probably wasn't. But it's also very easily believable for you to be like, oh crap, that could have been her. And that could have been kind of interesting. Not that it would have mattered either way, but it's just like, as a visual, you're like, that could have just as easily been that.
Could have been a past victim.
Because she probably did this a couple times.
Yeah, there's a lot of ambiguity in this movie.
The way she kind of brushes it off kind of further tells you that it's like, yeah, she's done this a lot of times, and she is like, yeah, I've gotten away with it before. No big deal.
But it turns out that Krista has killed herself. Lydia, we soon learn immediately, I can't say immediately, but she kind of, you can see that she's a little concerned.
Yeah, she kind of steps back for 8 seconds.
That's true, yeah. Well, that was, okay, you're right. The concern comes, like, whenever more people start to talk about the suicide.
Yeah, but she does kind of pause and she'll be like, oh, crap. But for like 8 seconds.
For like 8 seconds, and then she's like hugging Francesca, and she's like, there was nothing we could do.
Yeah.
She's like, she wasn't one of us.
Already blaming the bricks.
She's like, this is my problem, but you know what? Let's just not. Let's not. We're just gonna move forward.
Delete the emails. It's okay.
Yeah. So she...
Make sure you do.
I think she goes... Shortly after, she goes through, and she deletes the email. Krista was sending her, like, pretty much begging her. Lydia kind of got her, like, excommunicated from the music industry.
Yeah, very aggressively. She contacted everyone she knew that had anything to do with any of the big schools, anything to do with any art centers that perform, blah, 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 anything like that. Which is anybody that mattered in music that she was connected to, which is probably a great amount of the people because she is touted as literally the classical musician, basically of her generation. Gravity of it just immediately from that visual of all the emails, you're just like, oh, this is the stuff that she was doing that we never got to see, and wow, it just kind of hits you.
And that's part of another part of the genius of this movie. Big fan, if you couldn't tell, is that he's basically telling the story of the past in the present, and it's like there's no flashbacks, but like you're pretty much learning about Lydia Tarr and what she was capable of and is capable of through the details that are trickled out.
And you believe it because of the details given through her professional life that you see outwardly that she is showing people.
Yes.
Like you believe the stuff that you don't want to, she doesn't want you to see. You believe that because of how she portrays herself outwardly and shows you what she wants you to see, as in she's a genius.
Absolutely. And part of what's also going on in her life is a new, I think she's a cellist, who, I think her name might be Olga. Lydia kind of takes an interest in her from the get-go. Lydia is in the bathroom early in the movie when they're having tryouts, and she sees this woman walk by her, observes her boots, and the way that they do the tryouts for this orchestra is they sit behind like a wall and they perform. This way you can't tell like who it is or whatever. It's kind of like The Voice.
Yeah, but and it's perfect for the thesis of that really the best scene in the movie, the scene with the Juilliard. It fits the thesis like really well, and it's obviously like a normal practice that happens, but it also like really helps with the thesis of don't judge this person on anything they've done ever / in their life that was bad. That's how she kind of takes it in that immediate conversation. But also part of her point is that because people can judge you for stuff like that, people can also judge you for stuff that you portray outwardly, where like your race or your sexual orientation or your gender, like people can judge you by that, versus your actual art, which she tries, which is part of what I agreed with her about in that scene in the moment.
Exactly.
Is that that's what she's saying to the kid, trying to get him to understand that you can't just dismiss him. And obviously, there's certain unforgivable things that people can do that I don't want to lump into the situation, but part of her point was because people can easily do this, that people can easily just be like, hey, I don't want you in my orchestra because I don't like the way you look. I don't like,
exactly
what you do in your private, at your own home, things like that. But that's kind of the point that she tries to make. But the fact that it's a blind audition really visually shows you, oh yeah, this institution makes sense for having that commentary.
It does.
Because it's kind of built on that.
Judging on the quality rather than,
And like there's ways to cheat that. Like you can
go
to the bathroom and look under
what she does.
But the point is,
Yeah, I mean most normal, controversy-free musicians, I'm sure, do it the right way. Lydia kind of, she kind of takes her under her wing. They go out to lunch, and she suggests that she get like this cucumber salad because it's divine. And Olga's like, yeah, I don't really give a shit. I'm gonna have the salmon. And Lydia asks her, what her inspirations are, and she, I forget what she tells her, but Lydia's like, oh, did you listen to that on the such and such record? And she's like, no, I watched it on YouTube.
If anyone who likes art or anything, watches stuff on YouTube, they're dumb.
Yeah.
And like, if you're watching something on YouTube right now, then I don't recommend you continue with it because you're a bad person and you're not on Lydia Tarr's level. You can't learn anything on YouTube.
Lydia Tarr is a snob and a half, as Cher Horowitz would say. Opening introduction, he's reading off the EGOT winners, and he's like, Mel Brooks, and he delivers it in this way.
And the entire
that
audience laughs.
Like, Mel Brooks isn't an absolute legend.
Like, legitimately, every great person in the industry doesn't respect the absolute hell.
Yeah, exactly. He's incredible.
Yeah.
But Lydia Tarr, comedy. She doesn't ever say that, but like you could just see her saying that. Then there are more whispers of the email between Krista and whatnot, and Krista's suicide.
But her emails. Do we really have to sit here and talk about Lydia Tarr's emails again?
They're kind of
We
bad.
continually discuss Lydia Tarr's emails, and I just want to get off the topic.
Well, we'll do this a little bit longer.
I'm sick and tired of hearing about her damn emails.
So Lydia asks Francesca if she has deleted the emails, and Francesca's like, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, like it's a question.
She like totally takes hold of Francesca's computer, and no, she has not. There is also stuff going on within the orchestra that should be addressed. Damn, this movie's got so much. There's a guy named Sebastian. He's a major part of the orchestra. He calls her out for reasons that haven't yet been revealed to us, but he's like, Lydia, we know what you do.
She kind of like has a conversation with Francesca, her assistant, where she's like, hey, you know that position I just fired that guy from? If you want it, put in for it if you want, which is basically her way of saying, hey, the job is yours if you want it, if you have interest in it. Because that's how people talk.
Yes.
But they need to find out, obviously, that she is not about that, because Francesca dared to question her one time because she asked her to question her, because that's Lydia Tarr, and she was kind of like a trick, seemingly. But that was one moment in a life of two people, but that's kind of what the scene was trying to get across, I believe. So she basically screws Francesca over by acting like she was going to literally give her the position, and then just being like, oh no, I need someone more experienced.
Dick move, Lydia.
Yeah.
Dick move.
Basically said, hey, the job is yours, just so that she could be like, oh, no, you're not good enough. I need someone better and more on my level.
Yeah.
Obviously infuriates Francesca reasonably to where she leaves.
Yeah.
And does some stuff.
Leaves abruptly. We know that Francesca is not exactly happy in her job, but she's happy for the opportunity to be Lydia's assistant, because she probably assumes that this is going to amount to something. And the fact that it doesn't causes Francesca to not only quit and not only disappear, but also pretty much just she leaves a trail of blackmail, essentially. She's got all this stuff on her. From the start of the movie, and neglected to mention this too, we can only assume that Francesca, she's doing a live chat with someone where she's just kind of talking shit about Lydia. Yeah, it's not, it's pretty obvious. To me, it's pretty obvious that it's Francesca that's doing that. All of this starts to come out, and Lydia's life is kind of in flames. Not helping it is that, while all this is starting to come out and be public, she takes Olga with her to New York. And
yeah, for some reason.
Yeah, not Sharon. She takes Olga with her. And again, America is probably a bit, I don't know what it's like in Germany, but over here, we're canceling people, asking for a glass of water. Lydia Tarr, she done fucked up, basically. Pretty much as soon as she gets to her book signing, there are people with picket signs. People are taking pictures of her and Olga, and they're like, "Ooh, new meat," or something along those lines. And Olga pretty much realizes, yeah, okay. And, the internet, it's a dangerous place. But Olga becomes very distant. And Lydia comes back, and Olga kind of just completely ignores her. Lydia's power is kind of stripped from her. In what feels like an instant. She returns home, and Sharon pretty much what the f*** were you thinking? Why did you take this person? What are you doing? And it's probably because she's probably dealt with this a number of times, I gather.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah, and she's probably just I really didn't think we were going to go down this route again. Probably because the Krista thing was such a fiasco. Damn, wow. such good writing. Again, no flashbacks. Again, that's really, really smart. Lydia goes to pick Petra from school, and Sharon is there, takes Petra away, and Lydia is fired from the orchestra, and she just resorts back to her other nice apartment. Not quite as nice, but, you know, it's nice. And you could just kind of see her losing her shit in real time. There are people who knock on her door. They're like asking her about her music, and she's like, "Oh, sure, yeah, I'll play for you." And they're like, "No, we're wondering when you're not playing, so that because we have to sell the apartment upstairs, and we don't want to scare them away." And she's like, "Oh no, we wouldn't want that." And she just starts playing music as loud as she possibly can.
It's so different than the stuff in the rest of the movie, but also it really does feel similar to the underlying slyness, and it's just kind of like an explosion of her and her attitude, and you as an audience have felt kind of like, this is kind of funny at the beginning and stuff, and then it kind of like explodes at the end where it's like she's getting justice served her way, and she's, you know, spiraling out of control, and she's literally visually just completely different person in this scene, which works really well for you being like, oh, she's literally lost everything, lost it, you know, kind of like lost what she was working for, and now she's lashing out or whatever just because somebody was trying to operate their life, and she was just like feeling herself too much artistically to where she was just like, oh, now I have to get out to make them pay for it. And she's singing, you know, her greatest composition in the moment was that song. And I think it's a shame that it was not recorded and put out, because then that could have been a Webby or whatever, and then that could have been a Wegot or something.
It deserves to be in the competition for Best Original Song at this year's Oscar.
Weird Al come out and sing it for us.
Yeah.
And man, you got people watching the Oscars. You know.
You really do. That's good ratings. People who don't love this movie, which again, everybody is welcome to their opinion, they say that the movie falls apart in the last 30 minutes. And I guess I see it, but I also don't. Imagine having everything stripped from you. Or imagine like being like at the tippy top and then losing everything. Like, it's gonna knock a screw loose. I do think it's believable. It's just the rest of the movie doesn't feel that way, except it also feels earned to me. I don't know. Like, I get it. I get the critique.
I don't know. I feel like that's why I don't have it full 10 out of 10 yet. But I know that when I rewatch it and I recontextualize the first 2 hours of it, then it'll probably, you know, be like, yeah, I should just go ahead and
that's
it to 10.
I don't even know. Why. I give the movie a 10 out of 10. I think what the movie does, it does magnificently. I haven't even really heard people talk about how funny this movie is.
Maybe people are, but like, I don't know. I just kind of want to get... One of the purposes of this video is so that at least somebody's saying that it is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But like, it's hard to say that because this movie does deal with some very serious stuff.
No doubt.
She's very not good when all that stuff is revealed, and you're like, oh, she's not a good person.
Yeah.
And, you know, not that you're thinking she's a great person at the beginning, you just know that she is a great musician, and you're kind of viewing her through that lens, and you're hey, she's a genius in this way, and this way, and that way. But which makes it funny because she plays such a real person, but also a heightened stereotype of a pretension that you're just like, this is funny.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, like, it's just the way it's made and it's written. It's just in such a way that you can really, whoever chooses to interpret it what way or whatever way they choose to interpret it, I couldn't argue with. It's art. Like, I know it sounds pretentious, but it really is. It's art. To wrap this thing up, again, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Are we at that yet?
Yeah, we are close.
We're getting there. Tar, it's a lot of movie. At least for New York, in a last-ditch effort. I don't really know what she's hoping to achieve here, but I think she just kind of...
Nothing.
She's got no left to give. She shows up on the day of the concert, and she sees that somebody else that she had previously belittled is leading the orchestra, and she runs up on stage and knocks him over. And obviously she's dragged off because she comes off like a mental patient. And at that
And
point...
it could be she got dragged off because she committed assault.
Yes. Also that. Yeah. And she doesn't even go there anymore. But nonetheless, at that point, she has nothing. So she returns to her childhood home. And I think this is another part of the movie that not many people are really talking about. She's watching Leonard Bernstein, whatever, on like tape, and she's so moved by hearing him talk about music that she is in tears. And then she hears a door open, and you assume it's her brother. And again, like, the house that she's in is kind of like a shack. Like, it's not a place that you have seen Lydia Tarr really go anywhere near. But you know that this is her childhood home. And he goes, "Oh, hey, Laura," or Lydia. I feel like that detail is important because that's why I texted you that night. I was like, is her name even Tar with like the tilde? Did she add that just for like professional reasons? Kind of just see her origins as, she came from nothing and built her way up. So it's sad that she ended up kind of this way, but also she's probably never, I don't know, there's probably always a bad person in there.
But you still feel where she's coming from artistically, where she looks like she can't really do her art on the scale that she's accustomed to doing it, which is obviously justified based on the actions that she committed. Yes. But anyway, this is a person that doesn't really feel remorse for those actions. So she's doing it through the lens of like, I can't do the thing I've been doing and worked my whole life to do, and I've worked my whole life to do it because I was inspired by this person who I'm watching on a tape that she probably viewed when she was a child as countless times, enough to where it's enough to just elicit tears. And he's giving a pretty good speech on the whole, oeuvre of her art and why it was important to him and why it's important to people in general. And so it's not a crazy thing to react that way to in general anyway.
Right. She's so passionate about music is the thing. Like, she is great at what she does. Yeah. But it's everything else.
Yeah, and it's not like a scene that's there for you to sympathize with her.
Yeah.
It's not that. Though.
It's not, yeah.
But it's not that. It's more so a scene that's kind of there to just show you, hey, this is what you were trying to do your whole time and what you were aspiring to be, and you threw all of that away because you got so abusive of your crazy power that provided you, and you lost sight of what you truly wanted to do and who you truly wanted to be and who you were living every day to become. And she just kind of like, just because she wanted, to abuse her power to get like any young woman student she wanted basically, and she knew she could get away with it because she had all that power, she threw all of the actual value that she gave to the society and how she viewed herself as a person. She threw that all away just to egregiously abuse her power and ruin people's lives. It's more so sad, but not sad for her. You're sad for the fact that she chose to do that, and you can see that the greatness that she clearly has artistically gets thrown in the garbage just because she's a shitty person.
Exactly.
That's basically what the scene kind of represents for me.
I agree. I think that's very spot on. She was the cause of her own undoing. Even if she can't see that, it's like what she was once previously inspired by got lost somewhere along her climb to power. After she leaves her home, I really had no idea where this movie was taking us. I mean, I kind of didn't really the whole movie, but
yeah, I was kind of like, this movie should be over by now.
And
but the end scene does hit. But
yeah. So next we see her travel to a foreign country, maybe Taiwan. It's not really specified. Doesn't matter. You see her kind of exploring the area, and you see her having interviews. So obviously she's moved to this place because she's found opportunity of some sort. If you're a name, you can probably find work somewhere. It's like Woody Allen, his next movie is a French movie. He's making a movie. It's a foreign movie. He's doing it. I don't know. I mean, he kind of did it with Vicky Cristina. But like he's canceled in America, but he's still working in France. And then the movie ends with her in front of an orchestra. You're like, oh, she made it. She's back. But then you hear this voiceover of some sort, and then there is a cut to people in like tribal costumes, and it's a cosplay for some game. I don't know. I'm not sure. But if you think about the start of the movie and the finale, you know, the start with her doing the interview, you know, just kind of like talking so passionately about music and her lavish lifestyle, and you see pretty much, you know, how grand her life was, and yet I'm not saying that Todd Field is belittling, you know, cosplay and video games and whatnot, but you know that Lydia Tarr feels that she's probably above this.
Yeah, and the way it's shot kind of reminds you of like the end of Hereditary or something, where it's like a cult reveal, which kind of further visually aids to that fact, where it's like it's more so commenting on Lydia Tarr's personal hell, or like her fast food music version of her career that she aspired to be. It's more of that, like the way it's shot really lends itself to that, because it's like slowly panning and revealing, and you're kind of like, as an audience member, you've not been in this world yet through the movie, and you're just like, oh, that kind of reminds me of like a culty kind of reveal or whatever, and then your brain realizes, oh yeah, this is what this is. It's like, you know, a convention kind of thing, where they're like, see your favorite blockbuster movie or your favorite video game scored live in person.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And it's like, and it's still like a big event, and it's a bigger event for most people now.
Exactly, it's more important
than
than
classical thing. But yeah, she's just so up her butt and in her nose.
You just know it's not her.
Yeah, she is so down on this or whatever. But yeah, it's a good little solid, subtle slash, you know, people might act like it's not subtle, but it's kind of subtle, you know, little smash at the end. It's not like in your face where it's like, look at where she ended up. It's more of like, look at where she ended up. And then it just ends. Like, it's quieter. And yeah, I don't know how long this video is. It's a 2 hours and 40-minute movie, so there's a lot to chew on and everything. And I hope that this movie created enough thoughts throughout the entire viewing experience and long after you saw it, to where a video like this would be interesting and listenable for your ears and all the other such organs. That an ear is not an organ.
I want to apologize. I feel like I've talked a lot about Tar. But, I mean, after you see it, how can you not? I'm sorry. It's a juicy, in my opinion, great movie.
I hope you enjoyed it as such as us just kind of going back and forth and discussing what we had, our thoughts, just going through the movie in general. I hope you have interesting new thoughts that you can share in the comments, different takes that you have. I like seeing that, and reading Christian's review gave me some of those too, and that's just one person. And there's plenty of people that have seen this movie, and you are probably one of them at this point, because if you haven't seen this and you're this far into the video,
what are you doing?
You're asleep and you have this on autoplay, which is fine. I will take the watch time. But yeah, I mean, glad you're here nonetheless. But hopefully you had to actually watch this movie. I appreciate you watching the video, listening to this video. I really wanted to talk about this because it's a really good movie, but Christian definitely really wanted to talk about this.
Yes, y'all can have your football or whatever. I want to talk about Tar. You know,
it's an absolutely really great movie. But there needs to be spaces for people, and I'm sure that if I looked up Tar explained and this and that, there would be plenty of really great videos like that. But I don't know. We just kind of just wanted to just unfiltered, just bullshit for an hour or whatever it ends up being, and just you can listen to it, and hopefully you enjoyed it. But if not, hey, I sat around with my best friend and we talked about a really interesting movie, and we recorded it, and here it is. If you're still listening to me ramble on about whatever I'm rambling on about, then I guess you should probably subscribe if you're not, because I have plenty of ramble to ramble.
Girl, me too.
Christian also, if you like it, then like it. That's basically it. If you don't like it, don't like it. I get it. I will not continue. I will see you later.